And now, from the subterranean depths of the conspiracy realist's worst fever dream come to life, it's the 8th Annual Fake News Awards. Bringing you the worst deuces dropped in the turd bowl of journalism over the past year. What crimes against humanity did the mockingbird repeaters of the dinosaur media manage to whitewash last year? What absolute steaming crapola did the fibbing fabulists of the increasingly laughable establishment lapdog press try to shove down your throat in 2024? Will Benjamin Netanyahu retain his title as the most despicable liar on the face of the planet? Or will some upstart come along to take his place? And, most important of all, what disgusting dissembler of deceptive disinformation will walk away with the biggest dishonor of them all, the fakest story of the year? Find out in this year's Fake News Awards. Brought to you by our corporate sponsors. Jaguar. Copy nothing. No, seriously, don't copy our ad campaign, guys. You will go out of business. And Neuralink. Come on, get the chip. Yeah, it's exactly what Klaus Schwab and the entire globalist class want to use to implement their transhuman New World Order, but Elon Musk is that cool space guy. And now, emerging from the depths of whatever subterranean layer he lives in the other 364 days a year, here's our host for tonight's agony, Ben Kruckman! That's better. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, lords and ladies, assembled liars and sycophants, revolting reptiles, and technocratic tyrants of all stripes. I've just been informed that Trump, Clinton, and Biden are now arriving at the venue, and the Zuckerborg is helping himself to some refreshments backstage. And Kamala is, well, she might show up later. So I think we're ready to start. Thank you once again for joining us here this evening. This is the 8th Annual Fake News Awards, and as you know by now, this is the only ceremony in the nauseatingly smug, gag-inducingly fake, retch-provokingly self-congratulatory award season that's actually worth watching. This is the show where we bestow the dinos... where we bestow the dinos of dishonor on the biggest liars in the lying dinosaur media over the course of the past year. Yes, tonight we have 5 awards to hand out to the repeaters and mockingbirds who vomited establishment-approved lies into the mouths of the unsuspecting public and bid them to swallow it. A disgusting metaphor that only begins to do justice to the disgusting nature of the fake news disinformation that these toadies to the technocrats and establishment favor-currying journalists are inflicting on all of us on a daily basis. So, without further ado, I have in my hand the first dino of the evening, the fakest AI-generated garbage of the year. And the runners-up are... Stanford professor Jeff Hancock, whose biography claims he's well known for his research on how people use deception with technology, for apparently using deception with technology by citing numerous academic works that appear to have been made up by artificial intelligence software like ChatGPT. Amazon Fresh, for their Just Walk Out AI-powered cashless video surveillance system that in reality turned out to be 1,000 underpaid Indians. And Meta, for their nightmarish plan to unleash AI-generated characters, complete with profiles, backstories, and personalities, on all their garbage social media platforms. Which, it quickly emerged, they've already secretly been doing for years. Just ask Liv, Meta's black queer AI chatbot masquerading as a regular user, or Grandpa Brian, an African-American retired entrepreneur who was born in Harlem in 1938 to Caribbean immigrant parents, but who never actually existed. But don't worry, guys. Zuckerberg is totally based now, and he's part of that cool Tealverse thing you haven't been hearing about, so I'm sure it'll all turn out well. And the losers are Xinyu Guo, Liang Dong, and Dingjun Hao for cellular functions of spermatogonial stem cells in relation to JAK/STAT signaling pathway, a paper that was published in the Frontiers in Cell and Development Biology journal in February, and then promptly retracted because it was in fact completely fake AI-generated garbage. The first tip-off to this report's unreliability? The AI-generated image accompanying the article depicting a rat, helpfully labeled rat, standing upright like a squirrel and sporting a massive penis, several times bigger than its own body, and not one, not two, not three, but 4 testicles. To top it off, the grotesque image was accompanied by nonsensical labels of made-up AI hallucinated gibberish words like desilst, testum cells, and sanctolic. As the Twitterati observed, the horrors of Figure 3, depicting some monstrous, gelatinous, AI hallucinated rendering of some vaguely cellular objects labeled with more Sanalabonksiki computer-generated babble, is somehow even more horrific than the rat penis overlord. Perhaps the dino should go to the journal itself, however. Witness the retraction notice. Following publication, concerns were raised regarding the nature of its AI-generated figures. Frontiers would like to thank the concerned readers who contacted us regarding the published article. In other words, the editors either didn't bother to even read the article they approved, didn't understand that it was gibberish, or thought you were too stupid to know. But some readers brought the problem to their attention, so down the memory hole it goes. But remember, folks, trust the science. Truly, this dino is for the paper's authors, the journal's editors, the computer circuitry that hallucinated this revolting rodent into existence, and the scientific community at large for allowing digital drivel like this to undermine the public's belief in the scientific process itself. Uncongratulations, losers! Well, I don't know about you, but now I feel like I'm covered in gag-worthy nightmare fuel. And the night is only just beginning! Strap in, folks! And incidentally, if you want to follow along at home, all of the articles, videos, and reports dishonored in tonight's proceedings will be linked up in the hyperlinked transcript at corbettreport.com/fake news 8. That's right, the Fake News Awards are the only award show with show notes. Eat your heart out, Oscar. Now, let's keep this show rolling. It's time for our second dino of the evening, the fakest economic story of the year. And the runners-up are intellectually challenged New York Times columnist Thomas Friedman for Understanding the Middle East Through the Animal Kingdom, a piece of pop punditry so mind-bogglingly stupid that even the mind-bogglingly stupid Thomas Friedman should be ashamed. The piece attempts to dumb down all of Middle East politics for the American reader who Friedman obviously despises, insulting them with a turgid stream of journalistic junk as offensive as it is idiotic. Comparing Iranians to parasitoid wasps and Lebanon, Yemen, Syria, and Iraq to caterpillars, he then lionizes the US, literally, before comparing Netanyahu to a shifaka lemur. I swear I am not making this up. The American Farm Bureau Federation for Thanksgiving dinner costs are down again, a piece of PR bunkum that tries its darndest to flatly contradict the self-evident reality of inflation by telling Americans that Thanksgiving is cheaper than ever, before quietly admitting that while costs are down from last year, they are in fact up 19% since the scamdemic. They then double down on the idiocy by claiming that if your dollar had the same overall purchasing power as a consumer in 1984, then Thanksgiving would cost less than before. Except for the pesky fact that the dollar doesn't have the same purchasing power as it did in 1984. As offguardian.org puts it, The argument breaks down to, if food were cheaper, dinner would cost less.
No way!
Which ranks up there with the dumbest sentences ever reported in the fake news. And China's National Bureau of Statistics for preliminary accounting results of GDP for the third quarter of 2024, which reported a completely fictitious 4.6% growth rate for China's GDP in the third quarter. Not only did former Chinese Premier Li Keqiang privately admit in 2007 that China's GDP figures are man-made and therefore unreliable, prominent Chinese economist Gao Shanwen, the chief economist at China's largest state-owned investment holding company, SDIC, called out the Chi-Com's fake GDP number late last year, calculating that China in fact averaged around 2% of GDP growth in the last 2 to 3 years. So what's Shanwen saying now? No one knows! Since making his comments, he's been placed under investigation by the Chinese government and banned from speaking publicly for an unspecified period of time.
And the loser is... India Today, and The Street, and The Federalist, and NASDAQ, and literally dozens of MSM tail-chasing, supposedly independent media blogs and channels for the death of the petrodollar, a viral story that claimed the petrodollar agreement between Saudi Arabia and the US expired on June 9th, 2024. The problem? The petrodollar agreement was in fact never a formal agreement, and thus has no expiry date, meaning it can't be cancelled and it doesn't need to be renewed. That's right, folks. As very few pundits at the time seemed to realize, the petrodollar system was a backroom deal cut by Kissinger on the behalf of the Rockefellers and the US deep state to entice the Saudis to price oil in dollars in exchange for military protection from Uncle Sam. And that secret, informal deal was derided as conspiracy theory until it was finally acknowledged by the mainstream liars in 2016, a story covered by the Corbett Report nearly a decade ago. No, what ended on June 9th was not the petrodollar system, but the US-Saudi Arabian Joint Commission on Economic Cooperation, which was not a formal part of any non-existent petrodollar agreement. So, how did this story get reported and picked up and spread around the world literally hundreds of times before anyone even thought to question it? Because all most repeaters do is sheepishly repeat things they read without ever looking at source material or seeking to confirm reports. As Derek Brose noted in his detailed debunking of this petrodollar nonsense for The Last American Vagabond, a number of outlets that first misreported the story, including the Atlantic Council and TipRanks, whose ironically apt tagline is "Know Who to Trust," had to walk the tightrope of issuing retractions, corrections, or clarifications when their fake news turned out to be a pile of steaming horse manure, while simultaneously not admitting that they have no idea what they're talking about. Worst of all, it gave the usual gaggle of fact-checkers an easy slam dunk by correcting the record on all the blogs that immediately ran with the story. So, in short, the death of the petrodollar has been greatly exaggerated, and don't believe everything you read on the internet, whether from establishment sources or supposedly independent ones. And to the liars, go the dino. Okay, now that we're sufficiently warmed up, let's cool down. That's right, now it's time for a word from our corporate sponsor.
Hey, you! Yes, you. Are you a would-be world leader? Are you willing to kiss the ring and prostrate yourself before the Saudi royal family in order to secure military contracts from your prisoner beheading friends in the Middle East? Do you know how to sword dance? Well, you're not getting anywhere with 2 left feet like that. Don't get sad. Get lessons. That's right, from the same team of instructors that brought you Dancing for Doctors. It's sword dancing for dummies! Don't be like this awkward idiot. Be like this suave swashbuckler. When you take sword dancing for dummies, our team of instructors will have you weaving, swaying, head-chopping, and ass-kissing with the best of them in no time. Impress the Arab oligarchs on your diplomatic mission. Rise up the ranks of the New World Order. Make filthy blood money from stupidly rich, out-of-touch royal weirdos. And most importantly, have fun. Sword dancing for dummies.
And for a limited time, order now and get a free Bhangra dance lesson from Justin Trudeau.
You'll give cutting a rug a whole new meaning.
Fantastic. Just fantastic. Welcome back, folks. It's time to present our third dino for the evening, the award for the fakest global warming story of the year. And the runners-up are...
Sky and the BBC and Australia's ABC and a slew of other fake news MSM outlets for blaming an imaginary air turbulence problem on fake weather gods. The UK Met Office for telling the public that the cold April they experienced was all in their heads. Every mainstream media outlet and every establishment institution and every scientific paper that assert in a self-deconstructing argument that every country is simultaneously warming faster than every other country. Columbia Climate School for fear-mongering about the Great Barrier Reef, which in reality just hit a new record coral cover for the third year in a row. Axios, The Washington Post, The Associated Press, USA Today, The New York Times, and dozens of other dinosaur media liars for ginning up a fake news fear campaign over heat deaths during the annual Hajj in Saudi Arabia, incorrectly attributing them to angry weather gods instead of cyclical weather patterns, because climate is only weather when it's cold outside. Michael Mann and his colleagues for forecasting an unprecedented 33 named tropical cyclones in 2024, a prognostication which turned out to be the wrongest count ever predicted. And the EU's Copernicus Climate Change Service for using their crystal ball to report in advance that 2024 will be the hottest year ever. A claim that comes from their reanalysis dataset that only goes back 80 years and doesn't even use actual thermometer readings, instead combining past observations with models to generate consistent time series of multiple climate variables.
And the loser is... the UK Met Office, for literally making up 103 fake temperature stations and reporting 30-year averages from those non-existent sites. That's right. As originally reported by Ray Sanders and followed up in a series of extensive reports by the Daily Skeptic, the UK's National Weather and Climate Service has been involved in a massive, ongoing scheme to control the future by controlling the past, creating data for 103 of their 302 weather stations that seemingly don't exist. The site for Dungeness, for example, provides 30-year rolling temperature averages from 1960 to 2020, but fails to disclose that the station in fact closed in 1986. Through diligent efforts and actual reporting, Sanders was able to obtain records via a Freedom of Information request that allowed him to determine which stations actually exist. Keep in mind, this is the same Met Office that lists an airport weather station that goes back to 1873, 30 years before airplanes were invented, and that keeps a record in which 80% of their listed weather stations are sited in locations that had internationally recognized uncertainties between 2 and 5 degrees Celsius, making the purported tenths of a degree of global warming in recent decades statistically meaningless. Wait, just a second. This just in. This whole story has been debunked by Science Feedback, a Meta/TikTok/IFCN/EU/Google News Initiative funded fact-checker site that claims the whole inventing stations idea is fake news because, quote, certain weather stations collect decades of data, but later need to close down. Rather than letting this data go to waste, scientists are able to combine this past data with more recent data from nearby, well-correlated stations, that is, those with similar trends, to look at long-term climate trends. This is a scientific method that is published in reputable, peer-reviewed papers and is used by other organizations around the world. It is not data fabrication. End quote. But, as the Daily Skeptic notes in a detailed rebuttal that is well worth the read, the Met Office in fact goes out of its way to use adjusted, amended, modified, and likely corrupted data from inferior sites over long-term, reliable data from top-quality Class 1 sites because A, almost all of their weather stations are listed as Class 4 or Class 5 sites, that is, junk sites with unreliable data unfit for weather reporting by the World Meteorological Organization, and B, Class 5 junk data sites are more likely to report anomalous, hottest ever temperature readings. So what does all this mean? It means don't trust the UK Met Office to tell you the weather in 2125. That's what it means. It's fake news. So, here's your dino, Met Office. You earned it for the most shameless attempts at lying to the public in a field overwhelmed with people shamelessly lying to the public. Let's hope that public finally sees through your charade and completely and totally eliminates your funding forever. All right, folks, moving right along. The penultimate award of the evening is in my hands right now. This is the Dino dishonoring this year's outstanding achievement in gaslighting. And the runners-up are
the BBC for Newcastle grooming gang jailed for raping 13-year-old girl, which reports on a gang that used threats, violence, rape, and torture on a 13-year-old girl, making her life a living nightmare. And then casually admitting at the bottom of the article that the leader of this gang of despicable child rapers was lauded in a 2016 BBC puff piece on the plight of Syrian refugees in the UK, at the same time that the gang leader had been charged with sexual assault. Whoopsie. The Bulletin of Atomic Scientists for Chinese Nuclear Weapons 2024, a Pentagon-sourced hit piece that uses scary-looking pictures of inflatable domes to conclude that China will have 1,500 nuclear warheads by 2035. You can take that fake news prognostication to the bank, because when has the Pentagon ever lied about a foreign enemy's nuclear buildup? Or a foreign friend's nuclear stockpile? And in a Dino's first, the Bulletin of Atomic Scientists gets a special bonus nomination for Press Release, Doomsday Clock Remains at 90 Seconds to Midnight, an embarrassingly stupid piece of propaganda that would better be summarized as Extra Extra, Doomsday Clock Doesn't Change, or, as Off Guardian admirably summarizes it, Made Up Clock Tells Imaginary Time. And the New York Times for Kennedy's vow to take on big food could alienate his new GOP allies, which included a fact check claiming that Kennedy was wrong in asserting that the American Fruit Loops ingredients list differed from that found in foreign versions of the product, with the crack repeaters at the Old Grey Prostitute claiming the ingredient list is roughly the same. When this flatly incorrect statement was absolutely obliterated on social media, it was magically changed to clarify that he was wrong on the ingredient count. They are roughly the same. Remember, folks, the New York Times thinks so poorly of your intelligence that they buried their correction at the very bottom of this 41-paragraph article and hoped you would be too dumb to notice. Remarkably, the Times then doubled down on this fatuous food falsehood with, "Sorry, but this is the future of food," in which they argue that eating healthy food and using organic regenerative farming practices will anger the weather gods, so shut up and eat your Fruit Loops, you ungrateful peasants.
And the loser is Morning Joe and his wife's Big New, along with CBS, CNN, MSNBC, and every other 3- and 4-letter alphabet super in this den of fake news vipers for this version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever.
start your tape right now because I'm about to tell you the truth. And F you if you can't handle the truth. This version of Biden, intellectually, analytically, is the best Biden ever. Not a close second. And I've known him for years. The Brzezinskis have known him for 50 years. If it weren't the truth, I wouldn't say it.
Joe? Is everything okay over there? Blink twice if Mika has a gun pointed at you off camera. I mean, when you say this version of Biden, which version of Biden did you mean exactly, Joe?
There is some movement, and I don't want to, well, maybe choose my words. And now I want to hand it over to the president of Ukraine, who has as much courage as he has determination. Ladies and gentlemen, President Putin. I wouldn't have picked Vice President Trump to be vice president, but I think she was not qualified to be president. There's some movement. There's been a response. And I sat down and I said, America's back. And Mitterrand from France looked at me and said, you know, why, how long are you back for?
We hold these truths to be self-evident. All men and women created by you know the thing.
From there's been a response.
Yeah, trust us, guys. We're the mainstream media. When have we ever lied to you? Exactly. So shut the F up and believe us when we say Biden is totally fine. And if you think otherwise, you're probably a cheap, fake-believing, MAGA cap-wearing Russian disinfo bot. Oh wait, he's totally fighting dementia. Who could have known? Except absolutely every member of the public whose face you unashamedly lied to, that is. And you know what? Maybe we need cheap fakes to make Biden look young and virile again. Now, to be fair, Morning Joe was not the only one playing this game. Take Noah Berlatsky, who brazenly asserted, "There's virtually no evidence that Biden is in cognitive decline," just months after special counsel Robert Hur declined to prosecute the puppet-in-chief for illegally and improperly storing classified material because of his, quote, diminished faculties and faulty memory, end quote. Let's just hope for Noah's sake that no one follows the link in the transcript for tonight's award show to Shoe on Head's takedown of Berlatsky to find out what he really advocates. But, truth be told, it was every clown in the entire establishment media clown world circus who told us with a straight face that Biden was, say it with me now, sharp as a tack.
And the people that I've talked to and everybody that I have say he's as sharp as a tack.
He's as sharp as a tack.
He's sharp, he's fit, he's always answering questions.
I think that Joe Biden's mental acuity is very, very on. He's one of the smartest, sharpest people I've met in DC.
This is a very sharp president.
He's sharp, he's engaged.
Incredibly sharp, incredibly probing, incredible command of the details.
Oh, watch out, everybody. This guy is sharp as a tack, I tell you. I wonder what animal the disgusting dissemblers of disinfo who sold this lie most closely resemble. Quick, someone get Thomas Friedman on the line. Well, since there is, alas, only one dino to hand out, let's throw it at Morning Joe. Hey, at least if he's busy gaslighting the public with self-evident falsehoods, he doesn't have time to be killing his interns, am I right? All right, folks. It's that special time you've been waiting for. The most important moment of them all. The climax of this whole event. Another word from our corporate sponsors. Hello, I am Klaus Schwab. You might remember me from such infomercials as Cooking with Klaus. That is all. As you know by now, I have stepped down as the director of the World Economic Forum in Davos. But now my bank account is in crisis. I need the euros. Thankfully, I have found something that will make me rich and that will satisfy the red-blooded Davos men in the crowd. Now what? We cut and we rearrange the furniture and everyone likes calendar, right? And men, you like the beauties, right? Well, here is Beauty's calendar. For the low price of 19,995 euros, you can have this lovely calendar filled with the beautiful ladies of the Davos crowd. You turn the page and your eyes, they feast on that. You turn page again and incredible. Men, you know these women are powerful. You know they hold high status at the World Economic Forum. But did you ever dream of having them on your desk, staring at you every day? Now, that dream is reality. Page after page of the most beautiful women you have ever seen. Some women are alive, some are dead, all are handsome. But women, I know what you're thinking. What about me? I don't like the beauties. I like the beefcake. Here is Beefcake Calendar. It contains the movers. It contains the shakers. It contains the heartbreakers. Ladies, if this doesn't humidify your undergarments, look again. And for the rainbow people, you buy both. Only 39,999 euro. How can you say no? I mean, look at the... Hey, who put this in here? This is my private photo. No, really, when I find out who did this... Now you buy the calendar and you have Fifth Industrial Revolution in your pants. That is all. Ooh, Christian, baby, what you doing to me? Oh, Your Majesty, don't worry, I'm already standing at it. And we're back! All right, ladies and gentlemen, you've suffered long enough. And now it's time for the moment you've really been waiting for. That moment where we bestow the dino of dinos on the smelliest fart to drift across the fake news wires over the course of the previous 365 days. That moment where we hand the fake news story of the year to the biggest liar of 2024. And this year... It's... in the envelope. You moron! I swear, every year, who keeps doing this? When I find out who does this in increasingly elaborate and stupid ways, come to think of it, why did I persist after envelope? Anyway, oh yes. And this year, the unprize goes to CNN's Jomana Karacha for CNN exclusive. Syrian rebel leader says goal is to overthrow Assad regime, which, in addition to sporting the most obvious inane title of all time, features a pandering softball interview attempting to excuse, justify, overlook, or ignore the reprehensible war crimes of the so-called moderate Syrian rebels and their de facto leader, the globally designated terrorist known as Abu Mohammed al-Jawlani, aka Ahmed al-Sharaa.
Taking Hama, after taking Aleppo, I mean, how significant is this for you right now? You know, listening to you speaking, you've gone through quite the transformation. Once an Al-Qaeda leader, your group has had affiliations with Al-Qaeda, with ISIS, and now you are projecting this image of a moderate leader and a moderate group. What is HTS right now?
A person in their 20s will have a different personality than someone in their 30s or 40s, and certainly someone in their 50s.
So are those days behind you?
A fascinating interview there. I want to thank Joanna Karatse and her crew for that exclusive.
Oh yes, a fascinating interview. Quick, Yomana, here's a despicable admitted murderer who, for whatever it's worth, is still a wanted terrorist with a $10 million bounty on his head. But the new State Department script calls for us to ignore all that and celebrate the overthrow of the Syrian government. Now go! So how does all this make you feel, Mr. Jawlani? Sharaa. Whatever. Yeah, top-rate journalism there. Now, to be fair, it wouldn't be right to pin this moderate rebel softballism on Karadse and her CNN accomplices alone. There have been any number of fake news pieces by establishment toadies attempting the same whitewash of terrorist atrocities throughout the dinosaur media. There was How Syria's Diversity-Friendly Jihadists Plan on Building a State by Aaron Y. Zelen of the Washington Institute for Near East Policy, an Israeli front that Mearsheimer and Walt described as part of the core of the Israeli lobby in the US in their groundbreaking 2007 book on the subject. There was the BBC lecturing us on From Syrian Jihadist Leader to Rebel Politician, how Abu Mohammed al-Jawlani reinvented himself like he was Madonna emerging from another one of her plastic surgery interventions and embarking on a new world tour. There was the Washington Post describing al-Jawlani as a pragmatic and charismatic leader in Who is Abu Mohammed al-Jawlani, the Islamist rebel leading the Syrian advance. Oh yes, Bezos lackeys, spill the tea. And who can forget the PBS Frontline interview that marked the beginning of Jawlani's reputation-laundering fake news media blitz back in 2021?
Jawlani's stated plan was to topple Assad, seize Damascus, and set up an Islamic State in Syria under Sharia law. The U.S. State Department put Jawlani on its terrorist watch list, but he insists he used the funds he got from Baghdadi to strike military targets, not civilians.
نحن هل استخدمنا هذا المال في أذية الناس؟ لا. استخدمنا هذا المال في مواجهة نظام ظالم وطاغية يقتل الناس ونحن ندافع عن هؤلاء الناس.
But why stop there? We could go even further back. Remember in 2014 when the same crack squad of PBS prostitutes went undercover in Syria to report on the covert US program to arm, fund, equip, and train the moderate Syrian rebels that, whoops, gave birth to ISIS?
This is a locally made mortar. It's a 120 caliber round. We captured a destroyed tank from the army, so guys from our weapon-making team removed it from the tank. We used this piece, cut it and put it on a reamer and turned it into this. And this is how we make missiles.
But in recent weeks, they say they have been receiving more sophisticated weapons. It appears the Obama administration is now allowing select groups of rebels like them to receive US-made anti-tank missiles, known as TOWs. Many of the fighters have filmed themselves firing the missiles. In addition to receiving weapons, the commander says he and his men were taken on a long journey to a secret training camp.
You mentioned about al-Qaeda during your speech, going after al-Qaeda in Afghanistan, certainly going after them in Yemen as well. And yet there's some concern about the U.S. funding the Syrian opposition when there are a lot of reports that al-Qaeda is kind of heading up that opposition. How do you justify the two?
Well, I share that concern. And so what we've done is to say we will provide non-lethal assistance to Syrian opposition leadership that are committed to a political transition, committed to an observance of human rights.
Syria, we backed, I believe, in some cases, some of the wrong people, and not in the right part of the Free Syrian Army. And that's a little confusing to people. So I've always maintained, and go back quite some time, that we were backing the wrong types. I think it's going to turn out maybe this weekend in a new special that Brett Baer is going to have Friday that's going to show some of those weapons from Benghazi ended up in the hands of ISIS. So we helped build ISIS. Now there's a danger there, and I'm with you.
No, let's not ask about how the obliteration of Syria started in the first place. Let's not talk about the billions of dollars of CIA funding, not to mention the Saudi and Qatari funding, the Turkish backing, and the Israeli support that made this coup possible. Let's not discuss the atrocities committed by the terrorists. Let's not acknowledge the Syrians trapped in terrorist-held territory and used as human shields. Let's not question the ways children were used as political props over and over again throughout the assault on the country. Let's not examine the evidence that these very same moderate rebels actually beheaded children and ate the hearts of Syrian soldiers on camera as part of their demonic campaign of terror. Let's not tell the public about how false flag event after false flag event was falsely blamed on the Syrian government in order to turn world opinion against Syria. And let's not talk to those valiant journalists and scientists and investigators who stood up to blow the whistle on these false flags. Let's not expose the cheesy, fake Hollywood theatrics of the White Helmets and their founder, a former British military intelligence officer under contract to the US and UK governments. Let's not trace the thread of violence in the country backwards, from the mysterious provocateurs who turned the peaceful protests in Syria in 2011 into active gunfights with police and military, to the leaked 2006 cable showing that the overthrow of the Syrian government was a top US government priority for years before the so-called civil war ever started, to the 2001 Pentagon plan to topple 7 countries in 5 years, Syria included naturally, to the 1995 neocon penned clean break document suggesting that Israel, or its allies, would have to destabilize the Syrian government in order to secure the realm for incoming Israeli PM Netanyahu. Nah, let's not acknowledge any of that documentable history. Let's not ask a real question of this man who, by his own admission, was an agent of Al-Qaeda and ISIS before dressing in a suit and calling himself a diversity-loving, moderate political leader. No. Let's ask him how he feels about the destruction of Syria. Yeah, heck of a job, Yamana. Maybe you can talk about what it's like to order a suicide bombing in a crowded market the next time you're chit-chatting with this serial murderer over tea and crumpets while you're at it. And so, the decades-long plan for the decimation of Syria has finally come to fruition. And just like the obliteration of Libya before it, it ends with the regime change that the Western Empire wanted finally coming about as planned. The only difference this time is that Assad fled to Moscow before he could be sodomized with a knife in a gutter somewhere. Sorry, Hillary. No chance to showcase your psychopathic bloodlust this time.
The land of unconfirmed.
Yes, we came, we saw, he died.
Did it have anything to do with your visit?
No, I'm sure it did.
And the worst part is that, as always, it's the Syrian people who have to pay the price for the grand game of the geopolitical chess players. It's Syrians who have had their country ripped apart by a decade and a half of brutal violence. It's Syrians who have to live with the terrorists who have taken over. and it's Syrians who will be left to deal with the mess once the imperial bird of prey has moved on to its next victim. Won't someone think of the poor Libyans? The interventionists cried 15 years ago as an excuse to go in and bomb that country to smithereens. And once their mission was accomplished, they just up and moved shop to Syria. And now? The Libyans? Open-air slave markets? Total chaos? A failed state? Pfft, who cares? That was so 2010. Now it's Syria's turn. Will Syria descend into never-ending sectarian violence? Splinter into a dozen pieces? Will open-air slave markets pop up? Will Syria become the new home base for ISIS, giving the real terrorists in Washington and London and Tel Aviv another chance to extend their never-ending war of terror? Who cares? It's on to the next square of the chessboard now. Well, this dino is here as the silliest token of our resistance. We do not believe your lies. We do not submit to your big brother inversion of the truth. We do not give our attention to Yomana or the CNN, BBC known liars who have done nothing but lie in service of their masters for as long as we can remember. Take your prize, you losers. It's all you're going to get from us. And that's the Fake News Awards, everybody. Have a great year. And remember, if a dinosaur media journalist's lips are moving, that means they're lying. See you next year. Now, where was I? Oh, right. Oh, Hillary. Wow. Oh, Jacinda. How could I forget about you? Let's just hope this all stays on. Man, they don't make children's toys like when I was a kid, let me tell you. Put that in your little bag of outtakes.